It's Tuesday, September 30 here in Manila. I'm Karen Davila giving you the head start for the day. Our guest for Hot Copy today, we're very privileged to have with us. It is only his second time on Head Start since he actually won as senator in 2010. We're honored to have with us this morning Senator Bongbong Marcos. He'll be giving us his thoughts on the drafting of the Bangsamoro Basic Law, his political plans, and many issues facing the country, and also will ask him the Marcos family. On Hot Copy this morning, the proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law will have to face closer scrutiny by the Senate as some senators raise reservations on the measure's current form. Take a look.
All eyes are on the proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law. Once approved, the measure will abolish the current autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao and create a new Bangsamoro political entity in the southern Philippines. But for all its recognized value and perceived benefits to the Bangsamoro community and the entire country, Senator Bongbong Marcos wants a closer scrutiny. The chair of the Senate Committee on Local Government says some provisions of the proposed law are contentious, vague, and could use some threshing out. These include power-sharing agreements, from security management to national wealth. Marcos expects intense discussions on these and other issues in the coming weeks, including concerns over disarmament.
The ruling of the Supreme Court in 9, yeah.
And joining us in the studio, Senator Bongbong Marcos, Committee Chairman of the LGU and Public Works Committee handling this particular issue. Senator Bongbong, thank you for coming to the show. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I was going to say it's hard to invite you this early in the morning, so I really want to thank you for coming.
No, my pleasure.
Okay, all right. Now, on October 8th and the 9th, you will be holding a hearing in Cotabato for the Bangsamoro draft.
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, you mentioned that there are contentious issues. Talk about them.
Well, what really happened, especially in the very first briefing that we got, was that the more questions we asked, the more questions were raised.
Okay.
Like any complicated issue. So we never really got to the nitty-gritty of it yet. We were just talking about the practicality, about how it is going to work. I mean, there's certain practical questions. But then we eventually ended up in a discussion on the power sharing and how exactly that was going to work, because there's some trepidation in some quarters that this is already the beginnings of an independent state, and perhaps there's a fear that this is the first step towards total and complete secession, and perhaps we should be more careful in defining terms in the Bangsamoro bill, so that it's very clear that they are, in fact, not a state within a state, but they are a part of the Republic of the Philippines.
Now, the Supreme Court struck down the MOA AD, which was under the time of former President Arroyo. Looking at the Bangsamoro law offhand, is it roughly the same?
Well, I actually asked the question because the reasoning that the Supreme Court gave for striking down the MOA ad was that it had all of the characteristics of a state, and this in the Bangsamoro we seem to see similar, and so that's one of the questions I asked. I said that this might be a big constitutional question, and they just assured us that we never really got into it because, as I said, there are just so many issues that need to be clarified that was the last question we asked during the briefing.
All right. Offhand, in terms of power sharing, of course, I think Ging Deles has come to Head Start many times and discussed this in full. What concerns you there?
Well, no,
right now, is it 60-40?
Well, there are several issues as to, for example, the police, the disarmament, the police, who is going to be actually in control of the regional police,
who chooses
or the Bangsamoro police, who chooses them, whose orders do they follow?
Whose?
Are they?
Yeah, offhand now, whose?
Hindi nga maliwanag eh. Because one of the questions that I asked is that can the PNP chief countermand the order of the chief minister given to the Bangsamoro police? And the answer was ultimately the president can do it, but if there is a conflict, then there's going to be negotiation. So the next question I asked was, then you're putting already Bangsamoro on equal footing with the Republic, because you are negotiating as a sovereign, or at least on equal on equal basis.
Yeah.
So that kind of arrangement would certainly pose a lot of problems. The other issue that keeps coming up is the share of national wealth.
Okay.
Because as you know, the ERA share of local government is 40%, whereas for the Bangsamoro it will be entirely different, and the way that the ERA is going to be determined is the formula is completely different. And then in terms of national wealth, and then in terms of contiguous waters, all of these things, we really have to be very, very precise and explain, because some of the LGUs around the designated Bangsamoro area are worried that the definitions that we have as defined now are going to encroach upon their municipal waters, their municipal area. Then as to the conduct of the plebiscite and how it's going to be, how the results are going to be used. And what I'm talking about is, for example, there are some barangays which are separate, which are being removed from the provinces and the cities or the towns that they belong in, because they're not contiguous to the Bangsamoro. But they are included because they chose to join ARM, and when the time that they had their plebiscite. But because they were non-contiguous, they were not allowed to join ARM. And yet now they are being included in the plebiscite for Bangsamoro. So there seems to be a contradiction there, and it's something that needs to be clarified again. There's even the issue that has been raised of whether the plebiscite should be a national one, not just in the Bangsamoro area. Then, of course,
that would make it trickier and much harder for the law to actually, for it to become into law if you include Luzon and Visayas in the voting.
Well, it will be a much bigger proposition for the COMELEC. I don't know how ready they are for something like that. But again, it is something that's still being debated. It's still an issue that's been raised. Another really quite important issue that is not actually part of the Bangsamoro Basic Law, but is what do we do with the MNLF? Yeah. Because the MNLF has already made their position very clear. I don't know how more clearly they can make it. There was the uprising in Zamboanga, and when the Bangsamoro Basic Law was given to Congress, Chairman Nurmiswari again declared independence. And so you can see that they will not allow themselves to be left out. And this cannot work.
You do consider Nurmiswari as a fugitive?
Well, he is. He has an arrest order because of all the trouble that was caused in Zamboanga.
So I want to ask you, you believe that at this point Nurmiswari's opinion and stand should still matter, considering that they are believed to be of such, the numbers are quite less compared to MILF's 11,000?
The point of this exercise is to achieve peace. And if there is a group out there who is threatening to use violence as a protest or to change what is happening or what is being proposed in the Bangsamoro, we need to attend to that. You cannot just pretend that they don't exist. And if you do, we know what we already have seen what can possibly happen. So it's something that needs to be needs to be put in context, so that, because what we want is not just a jury-rigged arrangement. What we want is a structure, a framework that will bring us true and lasting peace.
Now, Senator, the Bangsamoro Law, President Aquino hopes that this would be one of the major legacies he leaves behind, considering the first peace pact with the MNLF was deemed as a failure. The ARM was deemed as a failed experiment as well. Do you think it will pass, considering that you want to review it, by the time he steps down as president, that this will become law?
Well, I don't know what will happen after Congress because there are many groups out there who have already said that whatever law is passed in Congress, that they see that there are deficiencies and they will challenge it in court. So I don't know how long that will take and how many of those there will be. But I think in terms of Congress, we gave ourselves a deadline of the first quarter of next year to finish it. It looks like we should be able to do it. But again, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done because, again, at this point, we're not even arguing about issues or about legalities or constitutionality. We are just trying to find out how it is supposed to work. What is the relationship between Bangsamoro and the Republic of the Philippines? How do the agencies and the organs of government work?
So you are not against it, huh? This is a clarification to those who have...
No, not at all. If this, I look at this as an opportunity that we can finally find peace again in Mindanao, and I think it's still based on the principles that were recognized in the Tripoli Agreement. That there are differences in culture, there are differences in history, in law, and obviously in religion, and that needs to be recognized and accommodated. So again, if there is any opportunity for peace, I think we should take a really good look at it, and that's why we are going into the minutiae, the detail of all of this, because we need to get this right. We do not want to waste this opportunity.
All right. Now, before we move to another topic, the most contentious part with the MILF and the peace panel, Secretary Guingdeles said they did debate on the national wealth sharing at one point. Offhand, can you tell me what numbers bother you? Because I know that in minerals, non-minerals, and in water, the divisions are quite different.
Yes.
Is there anything specific that offhand you can say, I don't think, Karen, they should get 40%?
Well, in the formula that was given, it's 75%.
That's why. I want to ask you, this is for what? For minerals?
For national wealth, that's minerals and all the all that any again of that can be exploited in the Bangsamoro. The question is not the number, 75%. The question is, why is it different from other LGUs? And all the other LGUs are saying we get 40%. Why is it different for Bangsamoro? In fact, immediately after that, the Cordillera congressman filed for autonomy of CAR, of Cordillera Autonomous Region. I suppose with the idea in mind that we'll get the same kind of sharing as well.
So you don't believe in a way that this is good for the rest of the country, that the rules are different in other parts?
Well, if there is a good reason for it, then there's a good reason for it, but we still have to hear it. And we never got as far in the discussion because, again, there just seems to be every time we ask the question, then it would raise another question because it's not a simple thing. What we are forming here is a government, but it's not an ordinary government. It's a government within a government, and that whole kind of arrangement is there are precedents around the world, but we have never done it this way before. So we really have to look at it very well.
All right, very interesting. So the national wealth percentage is a concern. Lastly, in terms of disarming themselves, this was also a contentious issue in the last days of the negotiation with Secretary Guingdeles and the team, Professor Coronel. When it comes to the disarmament, are you satisfied with how it went?
The problem is that we see with the disarmament, the question of disarmament is in the agreement that was signed, it was very clear as to the process of disarmament. That somehow has disappeared in the Bangsamoro Basic Law. And they're just saying that the disarmament, but when asked, the panel said that it was already ongoing and that heavy and crew-served weapons were already being surrendered, and this will continue.
Oh, but there's no proof of that yet, huh?
Not yet. We haven't seen. There is a promise that when the law is passed and the plebiscite has been done, that the MILF will give a list of names of their fighters who will be disarmed. So again, that whole process needs to be clarified, and we have to get into some detail so that it is a real disarmament.
So
just a paper disarmament.
Yeah. The disarmament issue was, I think, the last one where they debated heavily on.
Well, I think they just, I guess what they did was they said we'll just do it informally rather than put it back into the law.
Okay.
But again, you know, we cannot actually stray very far from what was agreed upon, what was signed, and so there's very little room for us to change, to amend. But at the same time, we cannot, in good conscience, pass a law that we know to be illegal or unconstitutional.
All right, okay. All right, now as Committee Chair of Public Works and LGUs, you recently visited Yolanda. Are you frankly satisfied with how progress and rehabilitation is going, or do you find it too slow?
Well, of course, it's always going to be too slow. I just came back from Tacloban and Southern Leyte last week, and to look at it, the structures are beginning to come up, but the basic infrastructure is still is still sadly lacking.
So the DBM has always boasted that they had $100+ billion allotted for Yolanda, but then the local government units don't have the capacity to absorb it. Do you agree with that?
No, I do not. We passed as an emergency measure an emergency fund, a total 120 billion plus another 60 billion, I remember.
Have they released it, you feel? Have they used it well?
If you ask the local government units, the answer would be no, because they haven't seen any of it. But then I think the DBM and the rest of the executive department has taken the policy that it is they who are going to do the rehab and the reconstruction, and which I feel they are missing out on a huge asset in the local government units, because they have people on the ground. They are very, very aware of precisely where the problems are and what needs the most attention and what should be prioritized.
You think they've given enough to Tacloban, considering it is the center, it is the business hub of that region? And in the past, Mayor Romualdez has complained that it became a political issue at one point. Visiting Yolanda, do you feel that they've entrusted enough to Mayor Romualdez?
They haven't. The government really hasn't used the LGUs. Not only Tacloban, but all the other LGUs as well. And so, you know, that's their policy. I disagree with it, but that's the policy that they've adopted. But even when you look at the schools, the repair of the schools, we're still far behind. You have to remember, we are coming up to the first-year anniversary.
This November.
And it was rather disappointing to note that the overall rehabilitation plan was finished 8 months after after Yolanda struck. So, you know, of course it will always be too slow, but I see ways that it could be more quickly done, and that the aid could be more quickly brought to those people in need. Again, I think the role of government is to build up again infrastructure. Now the slogan, what we hear all the time is build back better, and this is a great opportunity to do that. We're still not yet at that point where we have decided, where it has been decided what does better mean. Is it 4 meters above the sea level? Is it 40 meters away from high water mark?
Should the president have given Secretary Lacson more powers? Yes or no?
I think so.
He should have.
I think so, because in the end, if you looked, we of course studied the executive order that created his position, and he really had he had no mandate in terms of the agencies of government, the departments of government. They were just, I think, in the language of something like enjoined to provide all.
He's a
give all assistance.
coordinator.
Yes. He was supposed to put together the plan and then bring the plan to the cabinet, and the cabinet will then implement that.
So he lacks power.
But even funding, he had no. The only thing that I think he was able to immediately take advantage of were all the private donations that were being given.
Now, on another note, coming from Yolanda, in 2015, Secretary Petilla speaks of an imminent power crisis.
Yes.
All right. Now, does the president need emergency powers to solve the crisis that's in a span of 4 months in 2015? Yes or no first?
I don't, depends on what the emergency powers are going to be used for. We all remember the last
But are you open to giving him?
If it can be clearly seen that it will help, and that is at first that it is actually necessary, so that we have to see what the emergency powers are used for. Why are they necessary? Because they need to do this, 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 and this. Again, it has not yet been explained to us. But the last time emergency powers were given to solve or help solve the power crisis, we went and got those power barges, which even when we're not using them, are still being paid for, and we're paying through the nose for it, and it's not something we want to do again. Unfortunately, the proposal is to do the same thing, is to get more of these generators that we will have to take for 2 years and pay for the 2 years, whereas we're going to only use them for a few months. And
at 6 billion.
At 6 billion, which is a good chunk of money. So, but there are other solutions that people are talking about, which is one of them is the interruptible power supply, wherein we take advantage of
the ILP interruptible
load
program. I think,
yes,
like
I think
that.
that's
from
what
business,
it is.
from generators.
Just do everybody's generators and use those. And
so you want to see that first before actually saying yes.
I've seen some numbers, and apparently the available capacity there is 1,500 megawatts.
Okay. Now, did we make a mistake as a country by not continuing with the Bataan nuclear power plant?
I believe so. I believe so, because if that had been used, we would not certainly not be in this situation. Although that would not have been enough. It would have been enough maybe for another 10, 15 years. But still, we still at this point, Bataan nuclear power plant or not, we really just have to look into building new power plants and increasing production. I mean, all the alternative sources of energy are fine, but you still need the traditional sources of energy.
So, Senator, should we be open to nuclear? Japan uses. I'm just curious, given that the Clean Air Act is very strict, and our environmental laws, I think, are, in a way, the strictest in the world at this point. The implementation is a whole other story. But do you feel we should be open to nuclear as a country?
I believe so. I think it's something that needs to be studied. The technology has improved over the last few years, and just as a footnote, Korea has the exact same type of nuclear power plant that we have had, that as we have in Bataan nuclear power plant. They have, I think, 5 or 6 of them, and they've been operating for 20 plus years with no problems at all.
Now, when you won as senator, legislators have seen that I think in 2010, 2011, there would be a power crisis soon, and yet there was no action. In a way, is the executive to blame for this?
Well, it is there. It needs to come from them. It has to be the initiative, because they implement, the executive implements, and they must plan for, especially when it comes to things like power. It must be planned a long time in advance, because 3 to 5 years is more or less, that's a pretty good time if you can get a power plant done up, planned and built and operating in 3 to 5 years. You're doing pretty well.
Okay. On quickly, before we go to a break, then we move to other issues as well. The subcommittee hearing on Vice President Binay, should the Senate be doing it, considering there's a case with the Ombudsman, or do you see this as politicking?
Well, I think, again, maybe politics plays a part in it as well. But yes, it is well within the powers of a subcommittee of the Senate to conduct such an investigation. But again, it's similar to the case of the chief PNP, wherein there is a case also, and you could say legally that you can just answer the case in the courts and not bother with the Senate. But public perception is important to to have the confidence in our officials is important. So perhaps that needs more attention needs to be paid to the investigation, and some answers have to be made so that the public's confidence will return.
Now today there will be a Senate hearing, and the PNP chief, General Purisima, will be attending. Given all the allegations against him and the Civil Service Commission saying that there was a problem with his SALN, an expose revealing that he did not, he possibly underdeclared what was in his SALN, and the president standing by Purisima at this point. How do you feel about that?
Well, again, it's
considering we are in Daang Matuwid.
It's precisely that. It's precisely that same situation. He has cases filed against him. He will have to answer them in court.
But should he resign already as PNP chief?
Well, has anything been proven? I don't think anything has been categorically, anyone can categorically say this is what happened. Of course, his detractors say precisely that, but it has to be shown, and it has not yet been shown, in my view. But
so
again,
you would not recommend that he resign first?
Well, unless he feels that he cannot defend himself and he cannot answer these allegations properly, then yes, then he should resign. But if he feels that he has a perfectly good explanation, then and besides, if he has the confidence of the president, then that's a big plus for him to stay on.
Yeah.
But he needs, again, he is our #1 policeman, and the public's trust in our policemen is absolutely essential for us, for law enforcement and good public order.
So before we go to a break, do you agree with the accusation that the president defends yung kabarilan, kakampi, at hindi ko na alam yung isa, ano ba? Kainuman. Yes or no? At this point.
Well, certainly. Well,
does he turn blind when it is his friends?
Well, he's loyal to his friends. Let me put it that way. So when he's considered his friends, his loyalty shows, which I suppose is an essential part of leadership. But again, we have to see what the facts are. So we'll wait for them.
Okay, all right, safe. Hot Copy will be right back with Senator Bongbong Marcos. More questions to come. Welcome back to Hot Copy. Still with us is Senator Bongbong Marcos. It's the second half of the program, and Twitter has been very, very busy. Apparently, there are a lot of people curious about you. Very quickly. But you have to make this quick.
All right, I'll try.
The president being open to charter change.
I'm sorry?
The president being open to charter change.
Yes, but the reasons he gave were precisely the reasons that people did not want charter change for. If you remember, in the time of GMA, that was proposed, and the economic provisions and all that, and the general public just said it might just be used for political advantage.
So you don't agree with it?
Not for term extension.
Not for term extension. No. Okay. So should Binay face the Senate?
Oh, I don't know. That's really very much up to him, because there are two sides again to this kind of investigation. There's the legal side, while the cases brought against him in court. But then again, there's perception.
But someone running for 2016,
yes, he should, because he must. If he's a candidate, and a candidate will be asked these questions. I mean, I'm sure he's not surprised that this is happening. I'm sure he expected this. So I'm sure he is also prepared to answer it. So, although his contention is that the senators conducting the hearings are very much already biased against him, and that's why he doesn't come. But perception is important.
So he should. You feel he should.
I think he needs to explain some of the things that have been said.
Now, how do you feel after hearing? I know you were interviewed on this, but just very quickly, President Aquino in the U.S. saying that he wanted to exact revenge on the death of his father, and pertaining, without mentioning the Marcos family, pertaining clearly to your father.
Well, I cannot speak to how to his feelings and to his reaction to certain events. But again, from our side of the picture, it really we were talking. There's a difference between politics and personal.
Yeah.
And in our case, at least, what the opposition or I don't know how you want to describe it, but the differences there, the political differences between my father and his father were in politics, not personal. I actually saw them speaking to each other. Ang tawagan nila Brad, and they talked to each other perfectly civilly. But of course, they were fighting tooth and nail in the political arena.
So you have never spoken to President Aquino in private at any point in both your lives?
No.
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 Do you feel that this has been hounding you? I'm curious on a more personal note as a senator. Here you are, you won, you're clearly working, you're trying to make a name for yourself, and it seems old issues in history continue to hound you. Is that a challenge for you?
Well, yes, it is, because it's very hard to move forward and to talk about the issues at hand, which need our immediate attention.
That's why we did that in Headstart. Okay, go on,
Thank you for that. And if we keep reliving, rehashing, re-debating what happened 20-odd years ago, and you know the result of those events is very clear. My father's government fell. So that's it. That's the result. So we really need to then, okay, so that's part of history. What happens now? What do we do now? We are faced with this power crisis. We have these issues that the economic issues, the poverty issues, all of these things that need to be attended to. So when do we get to that?
Okay, all right. Now, how long will your family wait? This was, I think you tackled this in Linda Humilia's program. But how long, this is a Twitter question now, how long will your family wait for the burial of former President Marcos? That's a good question.
It is.
How long will you wait is the question.
We'll wait until, I suppose, we feel that his rights as a soldier and as a president are honored.
Yeah, which is military honors.
Which is military honors, because when President Aquino first became president, one of the first things he did was to instruct Vice President Binay to study the question and to give recommendations. And we met with Vice President Binay, the family, and the compromise was that he be buried in Ilocos Norte, but with full military honors. And that was the recommendation of Vice President Binay.
Yeah.
But the palace turned it down.
Yeah.
So that was the end of that. So our position hasn't changed. We feel, again, that for a bemedaled soldier, on that basis alone, he has a right to be buried in Libigan ng Bayani. And as the longest sitting president, on that basis alone, he also has the right to be buried in Libigan ng Bayani.
Okay, you said longest sitting president. There was an interview with you, I had also read with research, that you were against martial law.
I was against martial law?
No, I'm not sure about that martial law, but then this is the exact quote on you, wherein you had said, okay, you were asked about martial law, and then you said you were in the UK, you were 15 years old, and then you were quoted in the interview as saying this: martial law is not my cup of tea. Did you quote that? Did you say that?
I think that was in the context of the present.
Okay.
Is there reason to have martial law now, or to declare martial law now? And I think that was that because that is the way I feel. I don't think that it is appropriate now. And besides, everything has changed, and it's not the same situation. So, as in concept, in principle, we have to have the capacity to declare martial law if we enter into war, for example, and in such big crises. But again, if it is applicable to the problems that we have now, I feel that the government has all the means to solve the big problems that we are facing. It's just a question of buckling down and examining the problems, making a plan, and implementing it.
Okay. Now, User Papa Nico wants to know your thoughts on political dynasty.
Well,
That's interesting.
yeah, well, political dynasties.
Would you consider to having a political dynasty, your family?
Well, I suppose by the definition of the law that's being studied, that's being debated now, both in the House and yes, I suppose we are.
Because the president promises to pass that before he steps down.
Well, again, it doesn't sit right with me that someone should be disallowed from running from office just by virtue of their family name or their connection, because that does not seem to be that seems to be arbitrary in trying to
although
stop.
it becomes an advantage, though, an unfair advantage to someone who doesn't have family in office, like the Binays, for example. Well, so how far would you go in terms of fixing or tweaking that law?
It comes back down to an intelligent voter, because what this is trying to address is the continued presence of a single family, kahit na ayaw na nung tao. But if what it comes down to the voter, and that's why I always say the best anti-dynasty mechanism is an election. But you must be an intelligent voter. You look at who your candidates are. Are they good? Are they not good? Have they a good history?
Okay.
Do you believe in them?
Okay.
Not because they have a pretty face or they have the same name as you, or you know them from.
Now, Joy Agustin wants to know, how would you assess DILG Secretary Mar Rojas? It's a Twitter question.
Assess?
Is he good at his job?
Well, I think that he's trying to reorganize the DILG in such a way that it functions better. But I think, had a very big change in policy when Secretary Jess Robredo
passed away. Okay, so there was a change in policy.
Oh, definitely. There were some measures that he was pushing that we are no longer seeing so much of.
Okay. Now, in 2016, there's a lot of talk in 2016. People say it's far off. But frankly, if it were U.S. standards, this is quite close. But in the Philippines, anything can happen. Are you considering running? I mean, you're with NP, right? So you are with Senator Alan Cayetano and Senator Antonio Trillanes. Senator Trillanes has been quite open of saying, you know, if I have the opportunity to run for a higher post and serve, I would. And Senator Alan Cayetano has said, what's wrong with wanting the presidency? Are you gunning for any of those two posts?
No, we're not. Again, I would agree with those who say it's much too early to be talking about that. We are different from the United States. We don't have primaries, and that's what the last presidential election between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama went on for a year and a half because the primary process was so hard fought because they were very, very close. So that's why there have been primaries that third, fourth, fifth state pa lang.
So are you considering to run for president?
Not going on, and what the possibilities are.
After the Aquino presidency, there will be another 6 years. Do you feel at any point, Senator, that the public will be open again to a Marcos in the presidency or vice presidency level, considering there's been such, it's very long fought in history, the dictatorship, EDSA, this was a bulk of recent history. I want to ask you that, if that is a major challenge for you, that, you know, I'll be blunt, they'll say this, Marcos yan eh. Ito man si Bongbong, presidente, vice-presidente, Marcos yan. How do you feel and respond to these accusations when you are already not your father, but you are of your father?
Well, that's I think it's perfectly natural for people to think that way. But again, as you say, to make a name for yourself and to whatever their opinions were of my father, again, it's a different time, it's a different place, and a different Marcos. So it's apples and oranges, really, because it's two different people in a different. You know, we're talking 2 generations already.
I think
past.
3,
or possibly 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's 4. Yeah, 1970. Your father, 1960, 70, 80, 90, 20, 4 to 5.
Marami-rami na nga.
Oh yeah, well,
so,
decades.
Again, so it's a whole different set of circumstances.
Yeah.
So to go back to your question, are they ready? I don't know, but I feel that history will be the ultimate judge, and I believe that history will be much kinder and much more objective about my father's administration than, of course, his detractors and his political enemies are.
Okay. Now, the youth today, UP came out with a study that the bulk of voters are 18 to 40 plus, and a lot of them were not even born during martial law. I was born 1970, okay, but I'm 43. But talk about the 18-year-old voters.
Yeah.
It's true that a lot of them don't know of martial law. They didn't live through that time. When you go out, do you feel this is an advantage, or do you talk about it? Do you believe it should be taught in schools? How do you deal with it?
The kids, especially on Facebook and things like that, they ask me.
They do.
What was your father thinking when he did this?
Do you engage?
Yeah, I explained.
On Facebook?
I explained. I say,
you're the only senator engaging on Facebook.
I don't think so.
Yeah, really? But you do.
Oh no, it's well recognized that it's an important tool for all of us to try and gauge the people's thinking, and it's important to engage in that sense.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of reaction I'm getting. It's not saying that you're bad, you're good, you're this, you're that. It's really a question. Is it why did he do this? What was behind that? What was his thinking? That's always seems to be there's that curiosity that kids have, because if you look at surveys, there is this category where not only kids but most ordinary Filipinos, they put all of these discussion, politika.
Napipikon ka ba ever?
Hindi na.
Hindi na.
Matagal nang
hindi na.
Hindi na.
Okay, I want to ask you, now that you are in your 50s, but we can't detail it now because the show's about to end, but in your father's leadership, in another program perhaps, looking back, I'm sure you've read all his decisions. Do you agree with everything he's done?
Well, yes. I have perfect confidence in that he felt that what he was doing was the best and the most correct thing that could be done to address whatever problems, whatever challenges the country was facing.
Okay. Okay. Now, your mother, of course, former First Lady Imelda Marcos, who's quite an icon abroad even, was invited to the Ateneo Scholars by Ateneo Scholars several months ago, and you saw the public out. There was an outrage. It was like Butch Abad going to UP in a similar form, in a way. I mean, and then you have the Ateneo president, Father Jet Villarin, apologizing. How did you feel about that? Or do you think it was necessary? Do you agree with?
Well, it was to celebrate a scholarship fund which she began. I don't see why what the problem was. She, in fact, if not for her, that scholarship program would not exist.
Yeah.
And so it is perfect. My view is that it is perfectly natural for us being the pioneer of that scholarship program.
Do you ever
to be there and to look back and see how it started and how it's grown and how it's been successful?
I want to ask you if you've ever had these fears, because in Ukraine they practically threw a congressman in the trash can, and then you've seen this, no? They did. And then, well, Butch Abad was the biggest shocker of entering UP and booed completely, and then moving your mother, going to Ateneo. You're right. I mean, she supported that program. Do you ever feel that you go to a place, am I welcome there? Do you ask that with your staff?
Perhaps when we first came back from the United States.
Maybe, but not anymore.
We were thinking
today.
That. But again, I always recount the story that the first call I made when I landed in the Philippines, I was still in the airport.
Yeah.
And I called my mother and I said, come home. It's not true, and it's not true what people are saying that everyone is against us. It's not like that at all.
Okay.
And I never felt.
All right.
If someone has something to say, they say it to me. But they're very civil and they want an answer. They're not there just to scream at me. They want to hear what I have to say.
So you've never been screamed at, like this? It hasn't happened?
Screamed at? Well,
cajoled, I think, yeah, that was terrible.
No, it just, no, generally
Never.
speaking, people want to know, we feel this way very strongly about this, that, and the other. What do you have to say? They actually want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, all right. 2 more questions. It's up to you how you want to answer it.
Okay.
At this point in time, where the PCGG has allegedly confiscated billions in Marcos wealth, do you categorically deny that these Swiss accounts existed?
Which Swiss accounts are these now?
Go ahead, please.
No, which? Because this is all of these cases of the Marcos family has no longer been represented, and we have not argued it in court anymore for many years now.
Yeah.
We don't even send lawyers, and in fact, the case with the human rights was between the human rights claimants and the Philippine government.
Yeah.
The Marcos family was no longer involved. So
you personally, I can see that you don't want to engage yourself in that kind of argument anymore. That's how I read you. Am I reading you correct?
Well, I don't think it serves much purpose, because the decisions in court have been made, the judgments have been made. It's a question of implementing it. And again, as far as the Marcos family is concerned, the judgments against us are there, and that's the end of it.
Okay.
So I don't know what else we can.
All right. Here's a good question for you. Text coming from one of our bosses. Do you have a Swiss account?
No.
Okay. All right. Last question. Okay. There's a law that provides the compensation of victims of documented human rights violations. I had asked you this in the campaign. Do you remember? I had asked you, and you said, Karen, no, I believe we do not have. My father does not have human rights violations.
Well, if you remember,
yes,
the Human Rights Commission gave my mother a certification that there were no human rights cases against any of us.
Okay, so the question is exactly because there was never, this question goes, there was never an admission on that part. The question is, would you consider the law wrong or the lawmakers crafted it wrong? Because you have to remember, Senator Cheese Escudero was even the one, I think, who headed that, am I right, in the Senate, about a human rights violation compensation. Just recently.
There have been several measures that have been introduced.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that? Was the law wrong, or the lawmakers then who crafted it wrong?
I don't know why it was wrong. I mean, if that's the intent is to compensate victims, then that seems to serve its purpose. The law seems to serve its purpose.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't see where the wrong comes in. Why should anyone be wrong? Why should the law doesn't? Nothing that's happened would seem to indicate that either the lawmaker or the law is wrong.
All right. Okay. Last word, Senator Bongbong Marcos. Okay. Oh my gosh, no, I don't want to ask. See, Mark Leviste is texting, but thank you for your question, Mark. Your last words, I guess we've holistically, in a way, I mean, covered a few, but then there's a lot more questions for you, especially on Twitter. At the end of the day, where is Bongbong Marcos going? Will you be running for the Senate again? That would be in 2019.
No, no.
Ba? 2016 ka rin?
2010 ako pumasok.
So 2016?
2016 is my next election.
So offhand, categorically, can you declare
that
what position? You're clearly running again.
No, I'm running. My default position on the 2016 election is simple. I'm a re-electionist.
Exactly.
For the Senate. This is my first term.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of supporters, and I thank them for their confidence in my abilities, saying that
you should run for higher office.
But again, that kind of decision must be made much closer to the time, because politics in the Philippines is so volatile, moves so quickly, that to decide on the basis of what the political context is now would necessarily, I think, bring a wrong conclusion, because so you're basing it on something that will not exist when the campaign period comes and when the election comes.
That's true too. Okay, last, would you ever consider running after an Aquino administration?
I don't think the fact that it is after an Aquino administration matters one way or the other.
Okay, another question. Do you think Binay will be a good president? You're good. You can't. No one can get you at blink. Okay. What?
We think Bina will be a good president. Well, it has certainly been his ambition for a long time. So maybe he's thought about how to be a good president. So
Okay.
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say because you cannot judge someone being a mayor or a vice president and how good the president they'll be. It's
All
very
right.
difficult.
Do you think Senator Bongbong Marcos, I want to ask you, if given the chance, would you be a good president?
I hope so.
All right. Senator Bongbong Marcos, thank you for coming to the show. Let's get started today. I'm Karen Davila. Replay of this interview is at 6 p.m. tonight, 4:30 a.m. tomorrow, and throughout the day. And you can watch us on the Filipino channel. Thank you, everyone.